Oh, hello world, I'm your host, Adamining Mike, and on this episode of the podcast, we're going to talk about how do you motivate a recovering drug addict? Today's guest is Sean Kingsbury. Sean is a fascinating individual. He has persevered from a hard life of addiction and now uses his talents for good. He is a military veteran and truly a salt-of-the-earth man. Not only is he a TEDx speaker, he has created the Reclaim Project, which helps out men struggling with drug addiction. He incorporates a unique approach such as jujitsu and gives people jobs. I am highly confident at the end of this period of instruction, you will be able to take what you've learned and save a life. And that's called value. And because of that, you should like this video. Remember that sharing is caring. Subscribing is what winners do, but smashing the bell is what legends do. This channel breeds legends. News. You too can help prevent the death of someone suffering from an opioid crisis. A world-class data science team have created a daily forecast calendar that can predict with over 97.5% accuracy which days are high for drug overdose deaths. That's more accurate than a farmer's almanac. It was created with a machine learning model or AI called Seasonal Autoregressive Incremental Moving Average with Exogenous Factors or Ceramax. So, if you know somebody suffering from an opioid problem, check out the calendar in the video description below and give them a call on the indicated days. You might just save a life. Tell the world about you.
About me. So I am the CEO and co-founder of a men's transformational platform called the Reclaim Project. We're here in Spokane, Washington. The Reclaim Project is made up of a collaboration of businesses. We operate a construction company. We operate a transitional housing company, a 501c3 nonprofit, and then we operate a social enterprise, a thrift store, and a couple other smaller ways of making money. And all of those are designed to help men transition away from addiction, homelessness, and incarceration. And that's what I do.
That's really meaningful.
It is. It saved my life. Mm-hmm. I had an 18-year history of addiction. I went to my first treatment center at 30. I relapsed 4 times in 4 years, and then when after that last relapse, there's a part of me that just knew it was all on me to get the underlying conditions of my addiction under control and ultimately change me, neurologically change me. And I set out to do that, and my first nonprofit was an active, sober community, and we were hiking, biking, paddleboarding, strength training, doing mixed martial arts together, and having a conversation of recovery while doing it. And it has parlayed all the way. So I have multiple pilot tests on what works, what doesn't work. I've started a furniture making company. I've started all these different companies, but the idea behind them is, can we help these men move away from these life afflictions?
Yeah. So you're located here in Spokane. Have you lived here in Spokane your whole life?
Yeah, I grew up here. Well, I got here when I was 5. So military brat, came over, 5 years old. My dad got out of the military, landed right here in Spokane. And I was here till I was 18. I'm a Shado Park graduate. Mm-hmm. And then I went on to my adult life, which was many different careers. So
Good. So what was your first thought when you thought, you know what, I'm going to turn my life around? Well, after you talked about relapse 4 times, and that's part of recovery, mm-hmm. which is really difficult. So what sort of advice do you have for those struggling with addiction right now?
For those struggling with addiction, so someone who's inside of active acute addiction right now, my advice is, the most obvious, you need to stop. And you most likely need help to stop. And the safest way is to get that help. So I suggest everyone, no matter where you're at in your life, because you can probably only make things worse. When you have a full-blown addiction, there's so many people, I'm hanging on to this, or I'll go to treatment when I'm doing this, or just one more hit, or just one more week, and then I'm going to surrender. But in reality, the surrender needs to be immediately. You need to say, okay, I'm done with this, and I need help. And there's multiple detox organizations here in Spokane, and I'll say it, for people who can't get into a detox and they need to stop immediately, it's the emergency room. You need to go into the emergency room and you need to say, I cannot stop, I need help, and they will help you. I've seen it. I've walked probably 100 guys through the doors of emergency rooms and sat with them and been like, hey, it's time to stop. And then the work begins, so.
Wow. That's powerful, man. Like, you're going out of your way to walk them to the emergency room to actively save their life.
Well, it sounds, yeah. I mean, it's what I do. Like, when I got sober, I had an identity crisis. For so long I was lost, and I say this all the time. We have a generation of lost boys out there, and these lost boys are addicted, and they do not know how to pursue their life. And so being that lost and causing that much damage for that long, and landing in multiple treatment centers, multiple detoxes, multiple hospitals, I really thought that there is a way that we could be helping more people. What would have helped the 25-year-old Sean? What would have helped the 20-year-old Sean? And how do we attract young men into recovery? And I believe we attract them through life-affirming activities, as well as speaking life into their already biological nature of what they want to do. Provider, protector, someone who is a part of their community. So they're just lost and they don't know how to get there.
Yeah, that must be a difficult struggle, and it must be difficult when you see, and that's a feeling a lot of Americans, the ones that have a family member that are struggling with addiction, and those family members need help. And there's a lot and we live in this society where mediocrity and conflict avoidance, not only is it the standard, it's rewarded. And a lot of people just shut up. They don't want to go help even their own family member. That I listened to this one thing where this dad talking about his son who has addiction, and he said, the one thing you need in the home is a sledgehammer to break open the door.
I am not tracking.
Yeah, I know. Because he was like a heroin user. And
I see. Yeah.
Why don't you just throw him into the car and take them to the ER?
Yeah.
So what is your approach? How are you approaching people to try to convince them to go to the ER?
Mm-hmm. Oh boy, this is a very nuanced. It's difficult. It's tough. Mm-hmm. So I do believe that someone needs to be ready to stop. 95% of people are going to stop because of pain. So the pain of addiction is actually, so the pain of using outweighs the pain of not using. Did I say that right? So
the pain of using outweighs the pain of not using.
No, opposite. Flip that around.
Gotcha.
So the pain what's going to happen to in your life, the pain, like the feeling the feels and where your life at and the rock bottom, that level of pain, right? That actually has to be less than the pain of using. So there's so many people out there that they just continue to use because they haven't hit that like true demoralizing bottom. And most people who get sober, it's a moral bottom. For me, a really interesting thing, I would do all sorts of damage to myself. I would do damage to other people. I was out just running amok, living for myself, unbelievably selfish, self-preservation. And I had a choice. I remember I was over on the East Coast. I was up in Maine, and I had a choice to go north for all the drugs and everything that I would in an exciting life, or I could go south into the city to detox. But I knew that if I go north, my mom would have to come get my body, because there was a part of me that just knew that I'd been doing it for so long that I was going to die. And that was the one moral bottom for me that I could not let happen. And thank God I could turn down south in a really cool place in Portland, Maine, where you can literally like ring a bell and be like, I'm here to detox. And a large majority of the time, they'll have a bed available for you there. So,
do we have anything here?
Well, we don't have a ring a bell system. We don't have the same volumes of bed. We're a bigger city than Portland. We do have two or three really good public detoxes, right? We have a lot of detoxes that if you have good insurance, you can get into those as well. But for someone who's coming off the street or doesn't have insurance or is on state insurance, we have a few that they're really good and they're quality, and it's not easy to get into. But most people who really want to get into a detox, and they're dead set on it, it takes anywhere between 1 hour and 4 days. So, and 4 days is a long time. A lot of times we lose the window of opportunity. That's what I call is that window of willingness. Like whenever I pick up the phone, I'm like, please just have a bed available. Please just have a bed available. And sometimes there is, and sometimes there isn't.
Dang, that's a lot of stress.
Oh, again, it's just we get these muscles and this thick skin, and
Yeah, well, you're definitely doing the Lord's work, man. This is very meaningful for the community.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, we need more people like that. I mean, everybody thinks all these, I don't know, they think build more jails will stop, create more sober.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I love community building. Mm-hmm. It's really where I'm drawn. Leadership inside of building organizations and communities that lift up and transform our community, right? So I believe that we need many different organizations, and way different than the Reclaim Project. Mm-hmm. Different so that we can better serve the full spectrum of addiction and mental illness. Mm-hmm. We need knitting clubs in recovery. And then everything all the way to 6-month inpatient treatment and everything in between. But the more unique organizations we have out there is the better that we can serve the individual. The Reclaim Project can be amazing for some men, and it can be the wrong place for other men. So how do we create, and I'm in one of the jobs that I have is when someone comes into the Reclaim Project and it's not a good fit. It's my job, or it's one of the challenges I take on, is to know the other organizations that I could send them to. Like I will often be like, hey, this doesn't seem to be working out for you. Doesn't feel like a really good fit. Can I take you down to this organization? And here's why I believe they would be a good fit for you.
Yeah, that's an important thing. So you have to juggle a lot of different moving parts. Whether it's getting somebody in, or this guy's not working out, I need to move him somewhere else.
I have an amazing team behind me. Like I have really been able to find some guys who are dedicated to service, dedicated to our core values, and they show up every day. I mean, we wouldn't be anywhere near where we would be without the amazing help that I have.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back to the time when you wanted to build Reclaim. What were you thinking? What you started with an idea, and where did you go?
The idea of Reclaim, I touched on it briefly. So in 2015, I started a nonprofit called Pura Vida Recovery, an active sober community, free to anyone with 48 hours of sobriety, free yoga, CrossFit, strength training, mixed martial arts, hiking, biking, paddleboarding. So that was free, and we became very popular very fast. It was amazing. We had yoga classes with 20, 30 people in it, 6-7 days a week. We had a big, it would look like a CrossFit gym, but we had a big gym there. We had a meeting hall right in the middle of it. So we actually leased space out to different anonymous groups, CA, AA, NA, and a few other different groups would come into that space and hold a meeting. And that's where these two organizations together, or these two groups together, the anonymous group and then the Pura Vida Recovery, were able to really lift people out of their circumstance. I'm a huge believer in movement, and I'm a huge believer in community. Right, we have an epidemic of loneliness right now. So just being around people is powerful. So that's where I'm at in 2014, 15, and 16. I get hired on to the Associated General Contractors. I'm the first instructor in a program they were designing, so I got to have a lot of influence on what that program looked like. And what I did was I brought what I had learned in Pura Vida Recovery into this Head Start to the Construction Trade program. At the same time, I was pilot testing what's it like to just build restaurants and furniture with guys in recovery. And it worked, and it was working. The relationships that we were able to build, the way we were able to hold their attention was extremely powerful. I always said, I'm not going to sit a guy down at my desk and have a great conversation with him. It just doesn't work. That barrier doesn't work. But halfway up a hill on a hike, I start to have really great conversations. So at that point in 2016, that's not true. 2017, my son's born, and a few years earlier, something that planted a seed in me was a young man walked into the nonprofit, and he was telling me everything that was going on with him, and he was homeless. And I said, you know what? Yoga really helped me get my emotions under control, really helped me with my anxiety. And he looked at me very a matter of fact, and I just felt like stupid after it came out of my mouth, because it's like, man, I don't know where I'm going to eat. I don't know what I'm going to eat. I don't know where I'm going to sleep. And you're sitting here to tell me to do yoga? And that's silly. That was silly a thing for me to say. And that resonated with me. I was like, wait, for me to be able to help these guys find that second level Maslowian pyramid, right? The how to actualize, how to be present in the world, all these things that we need in our recovery, we have to meet those lower needs. We have to meet those lower needs first. And that's what really led me to pilot test, take on another job with the construction, and then, you know, having my son and just being, I was like, who am I truly called to serve? And it was men on the bottom rung, coming out of prison, coming off the streets, coming out of treatment centers. That who I was uniquely designed to serve. Steve Jobs says, when we connect the dots looking back, we can see the master plan. And when I look back at my life, God really laid out like trial and tribulation, career, trial and tribulation career to get me to a point where leading broken men to a place of power is really important to me, to a place of self-sovereignty, that they can be their truest, greatest, most authentic self. That drives me. And that's where Reclaim Project came from.
That's good. That's a really deep progression of figuring out in social interactions, because it's difficult to figure out things. Like, you don't know until you have that one guy just say, no, you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. Like, coming at me about yoga when I just gotta survive, you know. Uh-huh. And then it's just that it's like going to boot camp and having the drill instructor scream at you. It's like having just those little wake up calls. Mm-hmm. And so you feel that along your way you've had these wake up calls that have helped shape you into the leader that you are. Mm-hmm. And help you find your calling, which is leadership. Mm-hmm. So that brings an important question. It's the toughest question I ever ask anybody. Oh, and great. That is, what is a leader to you?
A leader to me finds the direction in which we need to go, and then finds the resources and motivates the people to go that direction. That's it kind of just in a really plain and simple. A leader is action. The best leaders, if you look over through the dawn of time, the leaders who are really making an impact were in the trenches doing the action. It was far, far less talk and way more action. So, yeah, it's really just finding the problem, finding the solution, and then gathering the resources and motivating the people. Good. And then all the character and integrity and all those attributes of a great leader will either make you great or you will fail. Because authenticity inside of leadership is paramount. It's key. These guys, look at the position I'm in. I'm trying to help men that have a master's degree in the streets and manipulation and prison and all that. Like, these guys are experts in their field. If I'm not bringing authenticity to the table, if I'm not truly like showing them you can change your life, and showing them guy after guy and being like, no, and not just saying, hey, we need to do yoga, but I'll do yoga with you. Like, I remember I was in the Marine Corps, I drilled oil, I played college football, all these unbelievably masculine careers, right?
You're in the Marines?
Yeah. Well, I drank myself out of the Marine Corps, so it was my second career. And when college football, I drank myself out. Then the Marine Corps tanker.
Well, happy Marine Corps birthday.
Yeah, on the Marine Corps birthday.
Yeah.
I just put that together.
Good.
Yeah.
I figured there was something about you, man. That's why you got all those leadership skills, is the Marines. You know, that's the thing a lot about veterans, is they don't come clean about that.
Oh, yeah.
And that honesty. Uh-huh. So how's your transition been? Obviously not that great. I mean, to this point, I'd say you're good, but it's been a hard transition for you.
Well, it was definitely part of my identity crisis. Mm-hmm. So coming out of high school, I was an extremely good football player. I could play football. I was too small to play middle linebacker and too slow to play corner. Mm-hmm. So I found a home at the University of Idaho and played like a strong safety monster back. And I thought I had arrived. Like, it was the best position for me at a school I really wanted to go to. And I had arrived. But at the same time, I was forced into a new social atmosphere. Because, I mean, the people I went to high school with, I had known for quite a long time. I was able to, those relations happened more organically. So now I'm away from home. I'm playing football in this atmosphere that I've never felt before, and there's booze and parties. Mm-hmm. And I had I found out then that I had like a crippling social anxiety. Mm. And now today, through all the work that I've done, I know that came from childhood trauma. Yeah. So I had this crippling anxiety, and that's when I really started drinking for effect. Mm-hmm. And I became a blackout drinker instantly. But I remember being scared to death. I was really good when I had my pads on, playing football, and I was really good when I was drunk. But those were my two drugs of choice: alcohol and football. They made me feel normal. They made me not afraid. They did all this for me, and alcohol won. I went to a party over at WSU, and just drunk out of my mind, and said the wrong thing to the wrong guy, punched me in the face. I slipped back on wet tile, completely blew out my ACL, MCL. Career gone. So real consequence. And then I have a real consequence on how I got out of the Marine Corps. And then I have a real consequence how I drank myself out of New York City. Then I had a real consequence how I drank myself out of Seattle, LA. But I still continue to drink. It's one of the unbelievably interesting things about addiction is how long it takes you to realize that you are just destroying yourself. But it's like, so, I mean, there would be times where I would dry out and I'd sober up. Like when I moved to New York City, I was sober when I got there. And, I'm always good in the survival. Yeah. Like I'm not drinking. I don't know where I'm going to live. I don't have a job. I'm on the grind. I'm going to get it. And I get my life to where it's comfortable. I pick up the bottle, and from that point, you just might as well get a stopwatch out because it is about to be a downward spiral, right? So, and then this was a cycle of my life. And a really interesting thing about my recovery is so I build my life up, I tear my life down with alcohol. I build my life up, I tear my life down. I do this probably 10 times, 10 different careers, 10 different cities, 10 different relationships, 10 different girlfriends. Just tear my life down. And then I find sobriety. And then I watch myself build myself up, and I find another way to tear myself down. It wasn't booze this time. It wasn't drugs this time. And I was like, oh, and that's when I had that aha moment, that difficult life moment where it's like, oh, it's not the drugs and the booze that are the problem. It's what's going on inside of you that's the problem. And you're always going to do this cycle unless you fix the inner workings of you. So that's kind of, that was that. And that's when everything changed, is when I was like, sobriety is just the first step to starting to work on me.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's a tough thing to deal with, man. I haven't struggled with addiction per se. Well, tobacco, that was a bitch.
Yeah.
That was a bitch.
That's a chemical hook for sure.
Oh man. I'm on my fourth quit, so I know it's a pain, and every day, you can't imagine life without it. You had a meal, you got to use, you got to, socializing, got to use. You're always reaching for that thing, always doing that hand to mouth movement.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, how do we retrain our neural pathways? I think you've seemed to find it in just absorbing yourself in great chaos.
Well, it's doing something new.
Meaningful chaos.
Yeah. In really reinventing. Well, I found it in reinventing myself, right? Yeah. So I tell everyone that the vacuum that is created quitting something needs to be filled. There's many people that religion will fill that vacuum, or God will fill that vacuum, and it's fantastic and it works. But there's other people that's not going to be what fills that vacuum. So you'll see. So one of the tricks with quitting something is, what are you going to start? A lot of people will just cold turkey it and then probably not even realize what they started, right? I started an ice cream habit, a habitual half-gallon ice cream habit when I quit drinking. I was literally in a treatment center that had like 4 refrigerators, and Safeway would donate all their almost expired ice cream. And that's what I did. And then I realized, and then with further investigation, the sugar in the booze helped me calm down. The sugar in the ice cream helped put me to sleep, helped me calm down, right? It happened at the same time I usually would start drinking. So very interesting there. But, and then, so we look at the habits and rituals behind an addiction or behind, using tobacco or whatever. And then we need to replace there. I had another aha moment where someone told me they wanted to stop smoking. And I was in a treatment center at the time, and I said, and it was a tall, like, mansion, like, it was a tall house. And we looked down on a basketball court. And all the guys would go out at the same time for a cigarette. And I just see them all flock out there. And freezing cold in the middle of Maine winter. And so it just popped out of my mouth. Well, quit going downstairs with the guys when they go smoke. Go have a cigarette, but just go by yourself. In like 2 weeks' time, he was done. Because there was a ritual of going out to smoke with everyone else. So it was very social. And then what happened was he would get outside. He would smoke half a cigarette and be like, it's freezing cold and I'm bored, and go back inside. And then he was able to wing himself down that way.
You're right. And I think it's that, like, chilling at the smoke pit thing. Like, people just chain smoke just to keep the conversation going.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. People have one more drink to keep the conversation going. People, I mean, again, that when we start identifying these biological drivers and these human needs, we're going to meet our needs. Yeah. It's how we're going to meet our needs. I say this all the time. I mean, we were talking about the Marine Corps. The attributes of a Marine can be very similar to the attributes of a gang member. The speed, the violence, the camaraderie, the need to be alert, the on point, the family, all of that. It's very similar. I met a prison guard once, and he said to me, he's like, my brothers are more talented and more gifted than me. They have all the same qualities and everything that I have. They have all the same drivers. They just focused it in a different direction. That was another poignant moment for me. It's like, oh, how do we get men to focus these natural biological drivers, but in a positive direction?
Yeah, that's a good point. And it looks like, well, I have this theory, at least for the military, and it might work for recovery. I think people are missing the ceremonies that they never got. And this was something that was kind of beaten to my head throughout my time in the Marines, which was there's always a ceremony until you get out. There's no ceremony. It's like, get out. Bye. Everyone's the same. You disloyal piece of shit. Get the fuck out. And I think that's one issue to identity. Like, there is no creation of there's no either way, long story short, this old grumpy thing I'm trying to do, I want to try to get a ball going. Like a no shit veterans ball. But it's like a ceremonial thing where you show up and you burn one uniform item. I don't know why, but everybody's like into burning their uniforms. But just one burn, you burn one item in like this pit, and then you go in and then you just enjoy the ball. Yeah. And then network and everything once a year, and like you receive that ceremony that you never got. Like all of you stand up. You're all now civilians.
Yeah, rite of passage.
Yeah.
I don't know why there's religions out there and cultures that have rite of passage for when someone from a boy to a man, right? Yes. But in the States, we don't have that. And it's like, I know for sure, I have a 5-year-old. I'm already planning his rite of passage. When he's 13 or 12, whenever it feels appropriate, one day I'm going to sit him down and be like, or we're going to have a ceremony and be like, You have just left childhood, and now you are a man. And you're right. These ceremonies can be really powerful. You know, in the Bible, they don't use the word teenager. There's no teen. Oh. You're either a child or a man.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that.
Yeah, it's super interesting.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, ceremonies, these rituals, these things that you inspired me to say something, which is a leader creates the rituals for others.
Mm-hmm.
In a way.
I like that. I think leaders steer culture.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in good or bad, right? Good or bad. Which is a responsibility, and that's why leaders always need to be looking at like one thing that I really was blessed is, so I drink my way out of everything, right? I barely graduate high school, right? I get like 1.5 years of college under my belt. I don't know anything about nonprofits, right? I know absolutely nothing about nonprofits. I'm new in recovery. So everything that I did, I was faced with the true question of, does it work? I wasn't using some degree. I wasn't using someone else's platform or doing what anyone else did. It had to work. Mm-hmm. So I had to ask myself every day, is this person becoming a better, more authentic version of themselves through these activities, through this community? And then I had to make pivots. Like, this doesn't work right here. One of the biggest pivot I've ever made as a leader was going from co-ed to men only. Unbelievably difficult decision.
Okay.
And what I realized was men and women in early recovery have a very difficult time getting to the place of vulnerability and connection when it's co-ed so that they can heal.
Okay.
The healing that takes place in the Reclaim Project would not take place the same if there was co-ed, because men are going to do what men are going to do. We're going to have a pecking order. We're going to be alphas, and there's all this stuff that's going to get in place because of our biological drivers towards women. So making that unbelievable difficult decision, and the end. Now today, I know the best thing I can do for women and children is create capable men. Mm-hmm. Absolutely 100%. I have been called to create strong, driven, capable men, and they will take care of their family.
That's what America needs. And the last guest I had on, Jeff McLaughlin, he was on the stage speaking with you during.
Oh yeah, I love Jeff.
Yeah, I asked him. I was like, look, as a point of national security, how do we raise a society that's not a bunch of pussies? And I think part of that is not living in a society of mediocrity and conflict avoidance, where you have somebody who says, you know what, co-ed ain't gonna work because there are some gender differences that are causing some serious psychological barriers in the healing of these men.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
And you were like, you identified this. So talk about that transition. How long ago was that? Did you move from co-ed to all male?
Well, it was just more of with an identity shift. I shut down the original nonprofit Pure Vita Recovery and opened the Reclaim Project. And so that's, I want to go back to your previous statement on how do we make more capable men is the way I put it. How do you make
more capable men? I know. I'm bad.
No, it's all good. Because I'm not going to avoid like a tough subject right now. Mm-hmm. And one day in my book, I'm going to have a chapter that says your son's recovery dies on your couch.
Oh, damn.
There's all these unbelievably well-intentioned moms and grandmas and maybe even dads that they're like, Johnny's getting out of treatment. Johnny's getting out of prison, and we're going to bring him to the house, and we're going to make sure he has what he needs. And we're going to make sure that, he has a soft landing. And I have seen it be just a disaster place for them, and for recovery. Recovery goes to the couch to die. Men are going to revert back to the little boy, the son, when they hit their mom's couch. So we're asking them, we're saying, hey, we want you to grow up and be capable men. And we're also not having the conversation saying that you do not have the skill sets to be capable right now. You need to go out and find them and get them. You need to surround yourself with capable men and get these skill sets. And so when someone has this cushy soft landing and the meal on the table that they didn't provide for themselves, that is a recipe for them not getting their life back together.
Yeah.
And I know that's going to land hard, but and I have this conversation with moms on the phone all the time. She's like, "Well, we're going to bring him into the house first." And I said, "No. He needs to come to the Reclaim Project. He needs to come and be around men who are going to hold him accountable for his actions, his behavior, who are going to ask him to become the man he needs to be."
Okay, so that's another thing. You tell a family member this, and then they come here, maybe. So do they come strung out or drunk, and then you guys do like an intervention sort of thing?
No, I mean, I personally do interventions.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just a little side thing that I got every once in a while.
Sounds like it. Taking them to the ER, that's definitely like pure unselfishness.
That was education. I mean, a lot of it is just, it's education. It's action. It's what would Christ do? Mm-hmm. And so every once in a while, I will do intervention. I don't want to do intervention. What I want people to do is make the choice that they want to be clean and sober, right? And then I want them to go get help. Or I want them to transition out of incarceration and say, I know I don't have the skill sets to live right now. Mm-hmm. And I need to go to a place where I'm going to gain those skill sets. So we don't get them intoxicated. We have great success with guys coming out of incarceration. We have great success with guys coming out of treatment centers.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, 15% of our population will come directly off of the streets. And inside of the interview before we bring them in, most of our managers are trained to really be able to hone in on, does this guy just want the consequences and the pain to go away, or does this guy want a life of sobriety? Is this guy ready to do what it takes? And so, and then 5% of our population comes out of a family setting. So 40% out of incarceration, 40% out of treatment centers, 15% off the streets, and 5% out of the family setting. So i.e. like a divorce. So someone gets a divorce and then they come into the Reclaim Project. So, or they'll be inside of the home and they'll need a timeout. They need to get there. They need to find sobriety. So then they'll come over to us and they'll spend an amount of time with us learning how to live sober and then go back into that family setting.
Yeah, men coming out of divorce. I know what that's like. I was living in my vehicle for a year straight.
A year?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, while going to school, mostly because of I was intoxicated by the freedom.
I don't think we have a society that's very good at helping people change.
Yeah.
Transition away from something.
No, they'll fucking lie to you. They'll say, they'll straight. At least you're honest, and it's the honesty that gets to people and changes the. No, they fucking lie to people all the time. That's one thing I've noticed about this civilian world is people lie so damn much.
Huh? Yeah. I had my bout with lying. I found out that no lie goes unpunished.
Yeah,
so,
truth sets you free. I mean, if somebody is like drunk as fuck in front of you, and they want to pretend like their behavior isn't okay, but everybody else, we live in this world of mediocrity, conflict avoidance. Like, no, we'll go to HR. We'll go to somebody, pass the buck off, because the last thing you want to do is confront that person. Like, dude, you smell bad. You don't act right. You need to act right. You're gonna fuck up everything. I don't feel safe because of blah 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 or whatever.
Yeah. In the beginning of my career, I was totally guilty of like trying to like pad everything.
Yeah.
And now I've swung the pendulums, maybe swung a little too far. I'm unbelievably blunt with the guys. But I find that that's what needs to be said. And that's what they need to hear. I'll run into a guy who's, successfully left the program. I'll see him like 1 or 2 years down the road, and he'll say to me like, "Do you remember when you said this?" And I'll be like, "Dang, that sounds harsh." I said that? Okay. But then he's like, "Yeah, it changed my life." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And yeah, one of the things we really pride ourselves with the Reclaim Project is we have tough conversations. We have extremely difficult conversations. Everything from body odor to you cannot see that woman again, or we're going to have to kick you out because we are watching you tailspin. And every conversation in between to like, your drywall looks like crap. What is going on? And just having that blatant honesty has really, there's something magical to the truth.
Well, yeah. And that's one thing I note, like in the military, holding the truth back is detrimental to the unit. So if you're keeping secrets, you're just fucking everybody.
Let me what an opportunity to be vulnerable for me right now. I was a secret keeper for a long time, and it came from sexual trauma. So as a child, I was drug into a closet and made to perform these sexual acts, right? And at the same time, they were like, "And you can't tell anyone about this." And wiring that in as a kid is like, oh, we can just not talk about it, and it's not there, right? And then it'd be like, okay, well, if she doesn't find out about this, then it's not there. And that really led to me having some very dark and a recovery journey from secret keeping.
Yeah, no, you're very brave for sharing your story, and that's a powerful way to accept who you were, and we can always choose to be either the victim or the creator from that experience. And you realize your pattern, and you're a rational man. You're a good, rational human, and that's what showed.
Yeah, it's often difficult to really tell these guys they need to take extreme ownership of everything that's happened in their life, because then they'll be like, wait, you were 6 years old, you couldn't do anything, right? You were overpowered. What are you talking about taking ownership of that situation? I take ownership of what came out of that situation and what I need to do to heal from that. So this is a conversation of recovery and the journey of recovery. And getting out of these loops, as I would call them.
Yeah, you're right. There's always some deeper issue, some seriously deeper issue that people have to deal with. And man, that's beyond my wheelhouse of knowledge. But yeah, that's important.
Well, this falls into what we do at the Reclaim Project. Is we will carry the weight a man cannot carry, but it is our job and our responsibility to give the weight back. So if a guy can't house himself, we will house you. But we want to get you a career where you can house yourself, right? If you I'll feed a man who can't feed himself, but alongside of that meal is definitely, hey, we are going to figure out a way that in 1 month's time, you can buy your own food. And this all the way down the line, because it does no one any favors to just keep giving someone something that they could ultimately end up doing for themselves. And so we'll bring a guy in and we will hold him accountable for his rent, right? It's because they have to pay rent for a single room, right? We will hold them accountable for their sobriety. We'll hold them accountable for our rules and regulations. because that is what is going to teach them the skill sets that they need to thrive in life. We have all these organizations out there who want to do permanent housing right off the bat. Boom, permanent housing. And again, every addiction is uniquely woven. Every addiction will be uniquely unwoven. So I am saying that everyone will recover differently. But there's a lot of people that we're putting in permanent housing that do not have the skill sets to run their own home. Mm-hmm. So bringing someone in and having them live in community housing, having them have to turn down the radio at 9 o'clock, having them have to wash their dishes, these are real skill sets. Like not just you can't just leave the bathroom however you want to leave the bathroom. That translates to being a good neighbor in an apartment complex. That translates to being responsible with your coworkers and your work. Because again, we have a generation of lost men who don't understand these skill sets and how their actions affect others.
That's true. Yeah. It's those simple things, the kata, to make your bed in the morning. Mm-hmm. One Navy admiral said, make your bed in the morning. That's the first thing you should do. And I think about that when I look at my bed and it's messed up, or my room gets out of order and whatnot. And I think, so where it starts, if you don't stay on top of it, how are you going to? But it is those little things. Mm-hmm. Make your bed, clean your room, clean the house. That your home is a reflection of your state of mind. Mm-hmm. And if your home is not pristine, your mind will always be stuck in the chaos. And I see that with like family members of mine, where I go to their homes and they're just straight freaking hoarders. Yeah. And these addictions come in many different forms, and they come in, you named it, sugar, like obesity. These are serious addictions that are manifesting in different ways, and the comorbidities are probably just as dangerous. But it goes back to that kata, that flow, the movement. How do these micro actions become ingrained into us? Mm-hmm. How do we begin to change that? It usually, yeah, you're right. I don't think people want to be helpless. I think a lot of men want to feel that they are able to contribute to the community, to the tribe in some way. And some of them have never had that, and they've never been held responsible, locked on that desert island to say, I'm the guy in charge of fetching wood. I'm not good at anything else, but I can fetch wood, and I can fetch wood to keep us all warm and cook food. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the things we do when a guy gets here is he's seen as capable right off the bat. Mm-hmm. I remember this, one of our managers, like a real pillar in our community, when he got here, it was like 1 week into it, I took him into a restaurant that we were doing a remodel on. And I'm like, okay, so I want you to demo this floor up, and then I want you to put everything in this garbage can, and I want you to take it outside. And I was walking away. And he's like, you're leaving? You're leaving me here in this restaurant all alone? And it blows his mind to this day that someone felt him to be capable of doing this job, number one. I mean, we're talking about career criminal homeless guy. And also leaving him around these tools inside of this building that I'm responsible for. So right off the bat, obviously we put up boundaries and barriers, and we do everything to protect ourselves as an organization. But we are taking the risk, an inherent risk of saying, hey, we believe in you, and we believe that you can do this. So let's do it.
Yeah, that's an important thing. And taking them on the job site and teaching them things such as, hey, code for every stud is 18 inches or whatever it is you guys are working on. That's really meaningful.
One of the things that I always say is how unbelievably practical the Reclaim Project is. I sat, when I was doing peer review recovery, I would always get invited to all these community meetings. And they would sit there and be like, well, one of the problems is people get released from prison and they have nothing. And then people get released from prison and they have nowhere to go. And then they'll be like, and people get released from prison and or treatment center and they have nowhere to go. And then it's like, okay, well, let's create a place for them to go. And then they'll be like, okay, but so then they land in transitional housing and they have to wait 3 weeks to get a job. Mm-hmm. And, then they get out of treatment and they have to wait 3 weeks to get a job. They have no way to pay for their transitional housing. And so to me, it's like, well, let's just put the job the day they get out of treatment, right? And then they'll be like, well, there's all these, they have all these conflicts. They got to go to the dentist and Department of Corrections, and they have to do outpatient treatment. And to me, I was like, okay, then let's just make the job hyper flexible. Let's give them the time off that they need. Let's employ them when they can. So what we do at the Reclaim Project is eliminate those gaps. Mm-hmm. And again, like I would sit in these community meetings and they would just talk about falling through the gaps. And it's like, fine, let's create an organization that has no gaps. And no organization is perfect, right? We have gaps. We believe in personal agency. I'm not going to go wake a guy up. I mean, we will send a manager to be like, where the heck is this guy? But we're not going to wake you up. It's your job to wake up. It's your job to choose not to go out at night. So do you want it? Because if I make those decisions for them, then they are not wiring in neurologically that decision. I'm going to go to bed early so I can have a productive day at work tomorrow, so I can make it to the gym tomorrow. Right? So it's one of the things you hear when people are coming out of prison. They're like, I do really good with structure. Like, I just need structure around me. What they're really saying is, I want you to make the decisions for me. So again, we have boundaries and barriers in place and we hold people accountable, but we do also give them the personal agency, the locus of control over their life. And then ultimately they get to create the life that they want to live.
Yeah, you're right. These guys regress back into some little boy.
Yeah, it happens so often.
Needing permission, needing supervision, mm-hmm. And you're right. At least, thank God, you're flexible. It seems like all these problems there's a lot of naysayers out there, and they'll make up excuses as to why they can't do what you're doing right now. But you're just like, no, we can make it happen, and we made it happen, mm-hmm. and we're making it happen.
Yeah, I really believe we're a model. Again, I want as many unique organizations as there can be out there, but we are a model that other people can use to help. And it doesn't need to be construction, right? So I'm helping a lady open a women's house, right? And it was like, okay, what industry are we going to attach on to this 8-bedroom women's house? And she just so happens to own a barbecue company. So now they're going to be part of the staff on this barbecue company. And it's like that practical, that just common sense can get a lot done. And of course, we're not a treatment center. We're not therapy. We understand and we love the therapeutic values of things that we have to offer here, but we do also push them. Hey, I want you to see a one-on-one therapist. I want you to finish your outpatient treatment. I want you to get help outside of here as well. Mm-hmm. It's a road. That's what a lot of people don't understand in early sobriety of what they're up against. And thank God they don't understand what they're up against, because most people wouldn't do it. But so my prayer is always that they go out and have enough pain from using drugs that it gives them the resiliency to stay in sobriety.
Yeah, that's a good point. You talked earlier about how they need to hit worse than rock bottom. Like rock mm-hmm. bottom has to be worse feeling than mm-hmm. not using.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily know if I use that in the right context of
I don't think it sounded really good to me. I'm probably not good at rephrasing it.
No, but I will just throw in my definition of rock bottom is when you can stand up and face your life. Until you are buried in the ground, it can always get worse.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot. So people are like, how could it get any worse? You're still breathing. You're still alive. And so that rock bottom is really like, okay, I'm going to stand up and face what is happening right now instead of just running from it, instead of falling further and further down.
Yeah, that's an important point. There's a lot of things a lot of people don't face, their own demons, their own issues. I know I'm not perfect. I know I suck at stuff that I gotta face too. And yeah, it's important to make that change, to realize that, you're not made out of glass. You're designed to take a hit. You're designed to get up and make it not who you are. And I wonder how much of the hero's journey, it seems like you are trying to incorporate the hero's journey into it, where you knew you were destined for something better, but everything just keeps slamming you, like the story of Job, kind of like, and also kind of like the Greek story of Odysseus, how he was trying to get back home after the Trojan War, and you feel like a person removed from the society you live. And that's easy to feel when you're homeless, like you disappear real quick.
Absolutely.
Like nobody gives a shit about homeless people. And but you're giving them that hero's journey, that you have this burden, kind of like the Lord of the Rings, like the ring was the burden, and they had to go through this hero's journey to go throw it into the doom. That is a lot of things. It's called it's called the Pilgrim's Passage. Is originally founded on. Like, we live in this society where you're a slave, and they want to raise slaves, and they want us to suffer these existential issues. So there's this guy, Dr. Viktor Frankl. He was a Jew who survived 4 concentration camps in World War II. He wrote this book, Man's Ultimate Search for Meaning, and he talks about, and it's an amazing, phenomenal book. It's really powerful. Everyone should read it or listen to it on audiobook. But it talks about, how the Jews that were running the ovens, they're always doping every day. They're always drinking, because the Nazis would give them as much as they wanted. He talked about how people in the concentration camp who had cigarettes, because cigarettes were the currency, and he noticed that when you didn't smoke your cigarettes because you needed to trade those for food to survive, but the people who started smoking their cigarettes died within 2 weeks. Wow. Yeah, it's because they just gave up. And there's some part of that where I think, the pain of living. But you said it's like, you use, am I not dead yet? Why am I not dead yet? And that's what I think, like, some of these dudes living under the bridges here, shooting up fentanyl, it's almost like, what kind of life would you want to live like that? That would suck. But I don't think they want that. I don't know. What are your thoughts? It's me riffing.
I think for a lot of guys, the life that they want seems so far away. And it is. It is. And it's always easier. It was always easier for me. So every day I got to wake up and make a decision if I was going to drink or not. Right. And once I had that first drink, I didn't need to worry about the rest of the day. I didn't need to accomplish anything that day. That day was for drinking. All right. I will become the person I need to be tomorrow. And that can take decades from someone's life. And just the looking, I could only imagine, being in a tent on the sidewalk when it's raining and cold outside and you have the choice to like, go and get some food and like try to scrape together and like what the next best move is, or B, smoke this $3 pill. I mean, let's be honest. Most people make the choice to smoke that pill. So that, I mean, which brings us, I mean, we could rap about, like, I love how all these topics, they just fold right into one another, because it's just the human experience. This is, we're dealing with the human experience, and yeah. So I don't even remember your original question there.
Oh, it's okay. So let me go back. You're right. That was really good, though, what you said. I like that. Yeah, they would... 'Cause I thought about that. Last night, I thought, I could have a drink. But I thought, no, I got a podcast tomorrow at 10. Mm-hmm. Because I will turn into that person. Mm. That was a good... You said that, I saw myself. Mm. And I'm like, yeah, when I start drinking, if I'm that dude, I'll just drink and I don't have to worry about it for the rest of the night.
Yeah. We, at the Reclaim Project, the leaders need to be an example of what the guy walking in the door could possibly be like.
Yeah.
We have to set the tone, because they're going to borrow our joys and our successes and our family and our life. They're going to look at us, and we're going to emulate a life worth not losing until they build their own life worth not losing. And that's the power of this community and the camaraderie and the lived experience. Like, there's so many guys that'll look at me and be like, they can't see me as a drug addict. They can't see me as a bottom drunk. So then I got to tell them my stories. Like, I'm not telling war stories. I'm sitting there being like, no, I went inside some girl that I just met, purse, stole all her change. So at 6 o'clock in the morning, I could go down to Zip Trip, buy like 22-ounce malt liquor, and then I get it out in the alley. I puke up half of it, and now I'm fucked, because now I need to figure out how I'm going to get another bottle. That's where I was at, and I just and I have nowhere to go. Like, that's where it was at, and like today, I couldn't even imagine like not having the capacity or the ability to move your life upward. Mm-hmm. You brought up something that I really like, and I really want men to start embracing it. None of us are perfect. Mm-hmm. I am so far from perfect. Mm-hmm. I'm a work in progress. Mm-hmm. And I need to be around the men that are going to be like, I totally will sit with you with your flaws, but we're working on your flaws, right? Because that's compassion, that's care. Like, not like it, just letting you destroy your relationship is not care and compassion. Just sitting there and letting you destroy your life is not compassion. But accepting you into my world and saying, hey, what do we got to do today? How do I help you today? Maybe it's just get you a pair of clothes. Maybe it's just, hey, let's finally like take you down to the Social Security office so you can get that Social Security card. Instead of saying like, you're not ready for work, you don't have any ID, go away. Come back when you have that. Mm-hmm. That's not compassion either.
No, that's not.
So we need to be able to sit and walk with people while holding them accountable. And we watch organizations hold people way too accountable for, like, they're not being realistic. And at the same time, you have other organizations that are not holding people accountable at all. Mm-hmm. So can we do both? Can we welcome someone in and say, hey, I am super happy that you're ready to work on yourself. How can I help you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an important thing. And not only is it a good thing for the human condition, it helps better the world. You said something, man. Yeah, that was really good, though, what you said, which was Oh, I forget, but I'm gonna have to go.
Yeah.
But it was good. Like you're killing a part of yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and people don't like to see others kill themselves. And what you're doing as a leader is you're taking people's problems and you're making their problems your own problem,
Mm-hmm.
and that's an important thing to do.
We are called to fill the cracks in the world with gold.
Oh, great.
That comes from a Jewish tradition.
Okay.
I mean, that's not me at all. I'm paraphrasing a proverb, but we have. I love capitalism. Like I love the driver I love the freedom that what capitalism gives us. We can create our lives, right? I see it from the perspective of that what we should be doing in life should be adding massive value. And the consequence of that will be money. We can make money. Money, like it's not a secret how to make money, right? There's people doing it all the time. I'm a part of groups. I'm a part of all these different organizations, realtor groups, investor groups, and it's all about making money. But what is the real value in what you're bringing into the world? And when men can get back to this old tradition, and really in a roundabout way, we're having a conversation about mentorship, leadership, and apprenticeship. Mm-hmm. And people would apprentice under a leader or an expert in that field for a very long time, and that was humility. Mm-hmm. And they would apprentice under. Usually, they didn't apprentice under their father. Their father, they would like a young man would want to be like a knife maker, so the father would take his son to the knife maker and say, "I believe my son is ready to make knives. Will you take him on?" And then that's what that boy did, is he made thousands and thousands of knives and spent thousands of hours crafting or creating his craft till one day he was the knife expert and his knives were immense value, right? And so that we've lost that cycle. We've lost that mentorship. Now it's just this dog eat dog, get, take. Instead of men stepping up and being like, I'm going to use all of my might, all of my will, all of my resources to bring massive value to the world.
Yeah. And you mentioned that is the purpose of business. That's the purpose of all organizations, is to add value. And when people get away from that and they start to think about dollars as a form of self-worth, it's a really stupid metric to be evaluating yourself on, because the money is going to get more issues if that's the way your business is running, just to get money, because you're going to need more money to hire more people to handle the more money.
Yeah.
And so it begets more problems. But you nailed on something that I ask podcast guests. I ask them, what is money? So what is money to you?
Wow. I don't necessarily know if I'm qualified to answer this, but I will give it my best. Mm-hmm. I've always loved the statement, money isn't real. Like, I've always loved that. And for me, what that means is like one man's 20,000 is a drop in a bucket, and he'll blow it on 4 steaks, right? And that same 20,000 to another man is his wages for the year. Mm-hmm. So if that's money, then money isn't real in my world. So I think money is this, it's a strange measuring device that we have, but it doesn't measure, going back to my previous comment, it doesn't measure true value. Like, if we, I can spend $50,000 on either a truck, or I could start 3 sober houses that are going to help 25 people continuously for the next 2 decades. It's the same $50,000. So to me, that conversation about money is, let me back. I'll end with this, because again, I don't necessarily have this thing very well thought out, the money thing, but I started with purpose. I was forced to start with purpose. I had nothing. I was dragging myself up from 10 failed careers, bankruptcy, all this, I'll just like zero credit and, horrible. Like, I had to start one step after the other. And I wanted to feel good about myself. So the way I felt good about myself in that state was doing esteemable acts. So I got lucky that I needed that. What made me feel good about myself was esteemable acts. And then I fell in love with it. I fell in love with my growth, and I fell in love with the growth of others. And that became my purpose. That became my drive. So today I got guys with far, far more money than me. Maybe more money than probably more money than I'll ever have. And they want what I got. They want the esteem of being able to genuinely sit and help someone, or genuinely be present in a situation that is going to move someone's life. And now I want what they want. What I want to do is I want to learn how to better make money by helping people. And to me, that's how I would flip capitalism. I would make sure, I would try to find a way that what you are doing with money is when you get money, it is a consequence of positivity in the world.
True. You nailed it. You just had a really, really good definition of it, but you nailed it. Money represents human energy. You can use that human energy to house people, or you can just blow it on bullshit. Mm-hmm. So you nailed it. So the next question is, it kind of alludes to, so what is power?
Power is the ability to move people. Okay. Or power is the ability to move resources, which will ultimately move people. Okay. Power is a byproduct of action.
Power is the ability to move resources. That's good. So what is? I ask all these simple questions. I ask these questions. I'm like Lex Friedman.
I love questions.
Yeah. I just ask a lot of stupid questions because you never know. Like, people have some really unique perspectives that I don't think of. So I think of these questions all the time, and it's surprising how many more higher life questions you can think about when you're not chasing pussy.
Oh, true. Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But let's see here. So, what is, you nailed power, what is influence?
Influence is, earlier I defined leadership as knowing what direction to go. The influence is getting people to actually go that direction. Yeah.
Getting power's moving equipment, influence is moving people.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a good way to put it. And I thought about like people with power or authority, not everybody listens to them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's people that will actively do the opposite of very powerful people. Mm-hmm. I mean, COVID was such an example of that. It's like, because again, it goes back to that authenticity. The best thing that COVID could have happened for leaders in COVID is if they came out and said, I don't know what the hell to do. It's a scary time. I don't know what to do. We're in this together. I'm going to give you all the truth possible and allow you to make the decisions over your life. Mm-hmm. That's what a real leader would have done during COVID.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, I was thinking, I don't even want to go down in the world of code, but yeah, I thought of that too. I was like, you know what? The day when Spokane, I don't know. I thought it, well, that's one thing I thought about. Where's all the dead homeless? Yeah, with COVID. I'm like, where's all the dead homeless?
Yeah.
They don't social distance. They don't wash. They don't do nothing. Yeah, but whatever. I'm glad we're through with that shit.
Yeah.
But so we covered influence, and then the next one is, you basically nailed it. Like, what is a favor?
A favor?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to do you a favor? Well, my hopes would be, like, in a perfect world, it would almost be like a definition of karma. Mm-hmm. I'm going to put this energy into the world expecting nothing back. And so, like, I'm going to do this right now. I'm going to spend my emotional, physical, spiritual capital for your sake and for your good. Mm-hmm. And then, and with the rule of reciprocity, it's going to come back. And I hope more people can lean into that. We're watching now that when people get vulnerable with their businesses, they give more than they take. They reap great rewards.
Mm-hmm. I agree. That's one thing I found is, and you've tapped into it. You even kind of noticed it. You said it, but you said it in different ways. But a favor is a representation of human energy. Mm-hmm. And you're taking your favors and you're putting them in places that your human energy, whether it is converting it to money to convert to drive something, or is you physically doing something, because it takes mm-hmm. literal human energy mm-hmm. to create this. Since I'm always, I speak a lot on masculinity. Mm-hmm. It's important. Unbelievably important. Crisis in America.
And I always like to just make a story as simple as possible for my guys. So I'll talk about a buffalo hunter.
Okay.
And there's a guy in a community in this tribe, and he is a unbelievable buffalo hunter. And he is sharpened every arrow, every blade. He has practiced. He has spent countless hours in the wilderness. Now, what feels more masculine? If I'm the greatest buffalo slayer in my tribe, and I go out and I slay this buffalo, and I drag it back and I put it in my cave, and then I stand in front of my cave and I guard that buffalo, and it rots and it dies, and I get a little bit of substance from it. Or I go slay that buffalo, I drag it back, and I put it right in the middle of the village, and I say, eat. And I sit back and I eat last. And my joy comes from watching all those people eat.
That's what the junta, the primal tribesmen say too.
Oh, then I probably stole it from them.
Well, it's true. It's a very true thing. When you shoot that big deer, when you catch that big fish, because I know I've been blessed. I went on tuna fishing trips and I really lucked out, man. And I had so much tuna. I gave away more than I ever ate. Mm-hmm. And it's a good feeling knowing that. And that's what, like Jeff said that last podcast, guys, like your ability to go out and get and provide for the tribe will give you a great feeling of accomplishment. I don't even know, like, if you were that guy who was killing the buffalo, putting it in your cave, he's probably the Grinch. Yeah, he's probably that social pariah.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense at all. Mm-hmm. And when we can bring it, there's so many guys out there looking for that feeling of contentment and that feeling of masculinity. Yes. Yet they are just dragging that back to their cave, and they're not serving others, and they're not like metaphorically feeding people. and giving of their energy. I want to be worn out every single day for my community. And then the one trip I take to Maui a year, I'm going to eat all the food I want to eat. I'm going to rest in the sun. I'm going to love every moment of it because, like, I earned that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really meaningful. So talk about the jujitsu.
I was going through when I switched from Pure Vita Recovery to Reclaim Project. I was going through some pretty intense time. It was super rocky with my son's mom. Mm-hmm. Politically was really rocky for me. Like, just alone switching to co-ed. It was a time for my life where I was hurting guy. And I was driving. So in between one organization and the other, I was doing contracting work just to pay the bills. Mm-hmm. So I picked up a job for a friend, and I was about to start swinging a hammer on something, and I needed a coffee. And so I was like, oh man, I'm not ready to do this yet. So I jump in my truck, I'm driving down the street, and I drive past these two guys, and one of them has like a yin yang shirt on, another one has like this kind of military looking shirt on, and something, now I know it was a divine intervention really, something's like, you need to talk to those guys. You need to go and see what those two people do. And I flipped a U-turn right there. It was right here on Broadway. And I walk up to these pretty, like, intimidating looking guys, right? And I'm like, hey, I just noticed your shirts. What do you guys do? And then they kind of like chuckled. And he points to his like pole building in his garage, in his backyard, right here in West Central. And he's like, we do Jeet Kune Do, which is a mixed martial arts. And we train every like Tuesday and Thursday. And I was like, how does someone get involved? And he's like, well, I'm going to send you some information on it. Read on it, and then get back to me and see if you want to do it. So that next Thursday, I showed up at that gym. And I was absolutely horrible. Like, I'm a Division I athlete, right? I can move my body. And these guys could whoop my butt in every way, shape, and form in 6-7 different kind of arts, right? Every single one in the gym. And there was more love, more camaraderie. They took care of me by teaching me this martial art during this difficult time in my life. And I used that as a vehicle of healing. Mm-hmm. And it was unbelievably powerful for me. And so this Jeet Kune Do gym is heavy on jujitsu. Mm-hmm. And so then I started a practice of jujitsu, and I am a completely different person when I'm doing it and when I'm not doing it. So I say trust a mechanism, not your own motivation. I don't know where I would be today if I didn't stumble upon that backyard mixed martial arts studio and been so welcomed and taken care of and brought in and trained and humbled. I'd been a leader at that point for 4 years, right? I'd been the boss. I'd been my own boss. And to go in as a student was exactly where I needed to be.
Good. So talk about incorporating that here with the Reclaim, and how has that affected some of the people?
Well, the exact same way it affected me really was, men, we naturally want to be capable in, number one, defending ourselves, right? Yeah. We're providers and protectors.
Yes.
Like, protection means that you can protect. And so there's that biological driver there. But then also, what it takes to learn an art like this is extremely difficult. The physical, the emotional, the spiritual challenges that you will have to even get your blue belt will be extreme. Like, the first year of jiu-jitsu, you're just trying to survive. Mm-hmm. You're just like, you're getting rolled by guys who've been doing it for years and years and years, getting twisted up like a pretzel, getting your wind knocked out of you, getting your air taken away. You can't breathe. Tapping. Like the tap is a submission, right? And it's a humility. You got me. So back into that student, right? So using jujitsu and boxing and other arts as a form of growth is really, really powerful. And so that's what we do here. We put them in this grinder of these arts so that they can grow physically, spiritually, and emotionally.
Yes. Good. That's an important thing. So how often are you guys rolling?
So here we practice twice a week. When my life's going good, I'm practicing 3 times a week. So, but here we do it twice a week. And then, which you've heard about is, so I think jiu-jitsu is the new golf.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because we can like just show up in Austin, Texas and just be like, I'm going to a jiu-jitsu studio, and all of a sudden I'm around like guys who are like me, right? Mm-hmm. Or they speak a similar language, or they're going to take care of me. Like if you go to the right gym, right? There's the wrong gyms and there's the right gyms. But like you roll with a guy for an hour and you know you got a good sense of who that person is. You felt him be able to hurt you or not hurt you. Mm-hmm. You felt him take care of you on a fall. You felt him like assist you. You've watched him stop and start, right? You get to know someone so quickly inside of these arts that, so then, yeah, I want to start doing jiu-jitsu with guys like yourself and Jeff and a few others that I've mentioned or I've spoken with, and like we're gonna do jiu-jitsu and lunch.
Yeah.
Once a month, we're just gonna get together and do roll for an hour, break bread for an hour, and make that a practice, a monthly practice where we're checking in with each other, where we're getting, and from there we'll build these relationships. We have this epidemic of loneliness as men, as a society, but I'm just going to narrow it down to men because we don't know how to build relationships. Mm-hmm. I remember it's like asking someone to the prom. It's difficult. We don't have, like as kids, we play sports. Like I remember, like we have these activities. That's how we become friends. So how does a grown man become true friends with someone? It's not easy. You usually get lucky. But there's a lot of grown men out there who they work a pretty a job where they don't have a lot of people around them. They go home to their family, which is fantastic, but that doesn't leave much room for them to have these bonds and these connections. And it's unbelievably important. And I say it to girlfriends and wives and mothers out there. It's like, you want your man to show up more masculine for you, then foster his relationship with men.
That's good. Instead of complaining about him going out.
I ain't going that far. I've treaded in some weeds already today.
Well, it's good, but it's important work. It really is. So yeah, I think monthly jiu-jitsu roles would be great.
Yeah, and that's just to meet new people. Like that's my way of like it's kind of my way of taking all of us and introducing you to more people.
Yes.
And then just be like, and then I'm gonna say like, starting with those 6 or 7 guys, I'm just gonna be like, hey, bring a guy next. You got 1 month to find a guy who would fit in, who would do well from this. Multiple people have already sent me guys who will do well from it, kind of thing. But then now we have this vehicle again to create relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, and it's better in the golf course because you don't have to spend your time 18 rounds of. So, but you're right. Yeah, it's a language of touch. Mm-hmm. And it took me a long time to figure that out. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a language of touch. It's kind of like dancing. So I know that so how much has, maybe not at all, dancing been incorporated in your life?
In my life?
Yeah.
It's so amazing that you just said that.
Okay, good.
If I wanted to elevate my life, I would find a dance studio. It would make me a better public speaker. It would make me softer and gentler. It would push me to a place of vulnerability, right? I'm comfortable in a ring when someone wants to punch me. Mm-hmm. I'm comfortable on a construction site, right? I'm comfortable in the boardroom. But I'm not comfortable exposing myself as a dancer. I don't have rhythm. I'm vulnerable. I'm goofy, right? So the fact that you bring up dancing is amazing, because I've literally thought, wow, if I wanted to get out of my comfort zone, it would be going to dance.
I think that's something you should consider starting here with these guys, because so I've got this philosophy that from being a combat instructor at the School of Infantry and having just meeting thousands and thousands of people wholesale, the ones that I find with the most confidence are the ones that can fight or articulate their higher being or dance. And if you combine all three of those, those are really, efficient, deadly people, because you gotta be able to articulate your higher being in a boardroom. You also have to have the balls to articulate your higher being in a boardroom. And fighting helps you get the balls to articulate your higher being in a boardroom, because if you can't fight, you're not going to be able to stand up. You'll cower down to somebody who pushes back or whatever, because a lot of things, because humans are very primal. It doesn't matter. I have a master's degree in freaking data analytics. People go back to real primal shit. And so you need to be able to hold your own. And that's a good feeling all around, and something little boys need to get into too. Is just learning how to learn. Well, all kids should be doing jujitsu, but learning how to dance. It used to be a way to legally and socially acceptably feel somebody up in public, and it used to be a big deal. Back in the day. Now people don't do it, and a lot of people lose confidence. I remember going to a end of the year jiu-jitsu party, and at this jiu-jitsu party there was dancing, and I'm one of very few dudes in the room that actually dance with women that had the balls to go up and do it. And I'm man, I stand in a room full of a bunch of dudes that can and have beat my ass, and I'm the only one that has the balls to go up and dance with a woman. And all they do is just stand around in a circle and watch all the girls dance with each other. I'm man, shit ain't changed. Shit ain't changed since high school. So, but that's what I think. I do salsa, merengue, bachata. I love the Latins. I don't do the country swing or the swings. It's really dynamic. But I like the Latins because they're slower and they're just sexy.
Well, I'm definitely leaning towards that as well.
Yeah.
I know an instructor in town, and she's a friend of mine, dear friend of mine, and she has pushed me and prompted me to do that, and now I have to. Now that I'm putting it out there in the universe, I got to.
Well, she could always come here and run some lessons.
It's interesting. I need to play with how that would take place. There is, we do need to protect. I mean, you can't ask someone to get unbelievably vulnerable too fast, right? So it's an easing into it. Look at me. I'm 10 years into my recovery, right? And then now I'm talking about dancing.
Yeah.
Right? So
you don't want to push. It's hard to get people to dance. It's easier to get people to fight than to dance.
Yeah, absolutely. So here in a place where we are dealing with some broken men, right? A lot of broken men, actually, to be honest. And when do you push is a real testament of a leader. When do you need to pump the brakes a little bit? And when do you just need to sit and let that person? Because just walking through this door can be extremely intimidating.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So then knowing when to push and when to lay off the gas, it's an art form, and Dancing, there is some guys. The best thing I could possibly do is like go and handpick some guys and be like, guess what? I'm going to be super vulnerable. I've never danced before, and you guys are coming with me down to this studio, right? So,
yeah. It's kind of cool because I don't go as often as I used to. Now I probably go maybe once a month, but yeah, I do salsa, merengue, bachata. I pay the $15 and I do the lesson, but. Yeah, but I still didn't feel comfortable dancing until like 3 months of going once a week. And then after that, I realized I was way better at dancing than I knew. It's kind of like jujitsu. If you go often, you're better than you think, even though you think you suck.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I try to tell a lot of these young guys is like, if you do it for a couple of months, you're probably going to be better than most people.
Yeah.
In everything.
Yeah.
Like, just like immerse yourself in something for 3 months and you're going to be better than a very significant amount of people. And a lot of different arts or skills out there, the first 75% is easy to get. It's the next 25 that's going to take you a decade to master, right? So try new things, experience new things. Get 75% at 6 different things, and then find 3 that you really love, and then work on the 25% on those other 3.
Yeah, that's a good thing. And you're saying that, I'm thinking about what David Goggins said. I don't know if you know David Goggins.
Oh, I know. Yeah, absolutely.
You need to double down on your weaknesses.
Okay, so this is my whole TED Talk.
Okay.
My whole TEDx is that men in early recovery will go to where they are good at, what they're good at. Mm-hmm. So their strong pillar. So there's the physical pillar, the mental pillar, and the spiritual pillar. I've met men who have an extremely strong spiritual pillar, and they walk in this door and they're like, I'm going to pray and meditate every day. I'm going to find an ashram. I'm going to get deeper into my meditation. And I'm like, haven't you been doing that for the last 10 years inside of your addiction? Is that really what you need to do right now? Now, I have no problem with you praying and meditating every day, but your physical health is garbage and your mental is garbage. And what you need to do is anchor yourself in your spirituality while diligently and bravely working on your physical and your mental. And the same thing, work's a really good example. I got guys that come in the door straight out of treatment. I got to work 60 hours a week. We know you know how to work, and the money will be there. But if you don't get your mental and your spiritual pillar up, then you do not have a foundation or a platform for your recovery. Like, so fine. So I tell people all the time, and I was one of them. Like, I could work all day long. I'm one of the hardest workers I know. Like, ever since I was a little boy, it was like in my blood, right? And that's what I would do. I would get out of jail and I'd go bust my ass on a job. And my mental would be like, I didn't know what I was striving for. And then I would be spiritually bankrupt. Being like, okay, I got money. Let me just go pour a bunch of booze in myself because I don't know what to do with this. The spirit in which I'm living my life, I have not developed at all. And that being the problem. So my thing is like, okay, let's have a anchor in what you're good at, your strong pillar, while working extremely hard on your 2 weaker pillars. Rarely do I see a man fail or fall from 3 solid pillars.
Yeah, that's a good point. It is a good point. And you brought up something that I thought about. I wonder how many people, no, there's a lot of people because I worked with them. Because the functioning alcoholics, the functioning ones that get away with it every day, years, going to work, go home, get a 6. I worked with one at a cabinet shop. He was my boss. He was like, I knew he was going and drinking vodka out of his little cubby hole because I would see it there. I'm like, yeah, I know what you're doing. Like, I'm not stupid. And So yeah, there is that, and that's almost like a shitty form of addiction too, because they've never hit that rock bottom. They're just happy where they are. They're functioning. They're a functional alcoholic who's part of society.
Yeah. I thank God that I wasn't a functioning alcoholic.
Yeah.
I thank God that it brought me to my knees, because I do see people, they medicate their life in one form or another. It's just medicating. There's stories of fishermen who, with the right dosage of heroin at lunchtime, would make it through the rest of their shift as a painkiller. And that's what they did for 20 years, right? But, making sure you have that. I mean, your life's hell if at 12:01 you don't have that dosage again. So you become even if you're functioning, even if your life is going the way you want, you're unbelievably dependent on that. Oh no, you are dependent on that. And so, yeah, I thank God that I got brought to my knees with alcohol.
Yeah. Which, and alcoholism takes out 10% of any given population throughout time, which is strange too. I guess it's part of the human condition. So I guess my question is, it's substance abuse, but is the road for recovery for an alcoholic similar or different, or how much similar or different is a road for alcoholism versus fentanyl or cocaine or any of these other ones?
I believe that the level of childhood trauma is going to pick your chemical of choice. I do believe that there is people who they reach to fentanyl and they have some heavy wounds. And the opiates are a warm blanket. They're a warm blanket, and every chemical, and so we're environmentally exposed to things, and why different chemicals are going to react differently for us. But I do believe that. But then also, our pain can come in stages. Like we can be an alcoholic and we can get a divorce, right? So now we have this divorce and we keep drinking, and we lose our job because we kept drinking. We were drinking because we got a divorce, right? And now we're divorced and we're jobless, and now our kids don't talk to us, right? It's a new level of pain. And you just happen to be on a date with someone who's like, have you ever tried fentanyl? And so you hit this fentanyl, and now what alcohol used to do for you back in the day, now fentanyl does, right? So the level of pain in our life can get greater, and therefore we need a greater level of painkiller, right? We need a greater level of escape. So, what we're doing is we're masking the underlying conditions of what's going on with us. And like myself, I quit alcohol, I quit drugs, and I transferred my addiction to something else, right? Some people, they'll start running, and they'll get runner's high, and they'll start with 3 miles a day, 4 miles a day, 5 miles a day, until they're up to 7 miles a day. They have to run, and they blow out their ACL. Now they're screwed, and now they're back on their original drug of choice. So if you don't work on yourself, if you don't work on what is driving you to escape your life, then you will just find something to mask it. And almost everything that you will find to mask your life with will end up failing you sooner or later.
Yeah, that's true. And you'll start to believe that you needed it, especially those successful people that have the money and are just junkies for something. But they use it, and they associate the success with the use. So they have this fallacious view of it. But it brings me to think of a question Mr. Rogers once asked, it was a famous question, what do you do with the mad that you feel?
You question why you're mad. And usually you're mad because you're afraid. And that's the simple answer. And most people know that, right? So why are you feeling what you feel, right? Now, once we know why we're angry, why we're afraid, then it takes massive action. You have to act to resolve the pain, okay? Some people have dealt with horrific life experiences, and that pain's never going to go away. It's just going to scab over. But it's what they do with that pain that matters. Some people destroy their life. Some people take all that pain and point it in doing good. I've seen it. I have people and friends who've done it before. So life is going to hit us with very hard, very difficult things. People are going to leave us. People are going to abandon us. Life tragedies are going to happen. You got to examine that thing. You got to examine why. What is the real angst? Where's the real anger coming from? And then massive action around it to solve it. Mm-hmm. Not to mask it. I take that back, because some pain we can just mask.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you are living the change you want to see in the community. What other changes do you want to see in the community?
I think I mentioned it earlier. I don't even have to be religious to make this statement. I thought Jesus Christ is one badass dude. Mm-hmm. And just the way he moved about the world and who he was amazing. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to do a lot more modeling of who Christ was. All of us, everyone. And I think that could really help society. I really do. And then just back to, I think I was on a podcast. I was talking to someone about this. It was assume the good in people.
Yeah.
Could we possibly assume the good? Mm-hmm. And where could that get us? I like it as just like a hack. Like, even if I know this person's coming at me with vitriol and hate, what if I could see the good in them? What if I could see that they were truly like afraid for their community, or the deep level of trauma and pain that they had? And then my answers were coming from that place. My answers weren't coming from a place of protecting myself. My answers were coming from a place of like compassion towards that person. Assume the good for me, like, right sizes so many things in my life.
Yeah. Assuming good intent. And isn't that something? Because we hear all these contradictions to that too, in little ways that you don't realize, like people saying things, if you're good at something, never do it for free. I think that kind of falls along that lines too, mm-hmm. of assuming good intent, or withholding information from people in order to. Think about it boils down to people being afraid of one another, mm-hmm. and they're afraid of getting taken advantage of, and it's one of those observations I noticed too. It's like the people that were least afraid are gonna be more accepted by people. It's kind of like the wolves that were domesticated by the humans were the ones that hung around and had the least fear in their bodies. And they did that with some tests and stuff, and they basically domesticated them into the dog. But I mean, if you're always just gonna assume that like that person's a bad person, and I'm the dog that bites, and I'm always gonna be on guard, and I'm going to not trust what you say. You know, if there's no truth and trust, you don't have business. You don't have any sort of relationship without truth and trust. And you have to establish that, assume good intent. Don't be evil. Yeah. So, what other things? We're almost at 2 hours. So
wow.
I know.
2 hours.
Yeah, time flies when we're having fun. It's a good, meaningful thing. I love these podcasts. Like, I learn things that I never even realized. You know, I get to see the world from other people's perspective. I see people as their own planet of keywords, and you don't really get to understand. You learn so much more when you go and you meet somebody and you see the behind the scenes. Like here, like as soon as I walked in, it was just active, which was great. Which is great because I've walked into buildings, other buildings in Spokane, and they won't even be close to as this active. It's like you walk in, people moving around, moving gear, going out to job sites, you're coordinating, you got a lot of moving parts, which is really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, we're blessed to be able to do what we do here. And I want to touch back with, I love that I got to meet you and see and sit with you and see your individual uniqueness. Thank you. And I just, for me to end this is like, what we're talking about is like getting uncomfortable. I know it's now a tagline everywhere. Get uncomfortable, get uncomfortable. But I see a lot of people saying it, but not a lot of people doing it. And they're like tiptoeing into the waters. And then they'll sit with their feet in the water for quite a long time. It's like, I get it. I get easing into things, but you got to get uncomfortable. You got to stretch yourself and grow. It's grow or die. The human species, all species, we're growing or we're dying. And you get to pick. And then the way you grow is to get uncomfortable.
It's true. You got to leave your comfort zone. Got to blossom where you're planted. The one thing the story of Jesus will show is we will kill the Son of God to stay in our comfort zone. Yeah, which is nuts. So it is important to leave your comfort zone. So any parting shots you want to go?
If you're interested in the Reclaim Project or you know someone who could benefit from the Reclaim Project, I always give people literally the direct number to me, like the phone number, because it's often hard to reach someone who can make choices inside of an organization. So 509-435-6708 is how you will literally get my personal cell phone, and I try to return every message or call. We do a lot around here. Almost anyone can get involved in some way, shape, or form, whether it's at our thrift store, whether it's donating, whether it's helping paint a house, whether it's teaching classes, yoga or jujitsu, or whether it's like bringing food for their Wednesday night Bible study. Like, I always have set out to just stir up the community and have the community take over and move this thing to having the ability to influencing thousands and thousands of men.
Yeah. So you said your number, but where can people find you online?
ReclaimProjectNW.org.
All right. Instagram?
Nope. Facebook is Reclaim Project NW.
Okay. Twitter?
Nope.
No.
We keep it old school and simple.
Okay. Cool. So you got those. So everybody, I hope you all enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Be sure to check out all Sean's information in the video description below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and smash that bell for more data-driven updates. Bye.